It was one of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen in my life. In front of the Supreme Court, every walk of life, citizens from all across the country. We all put everything aside to come together. And it really was, I think, the spirit of what Secretary Kennedy really wanted to bring to Washington with the MAHA movement.
We will not comply with the institutions, sick illusion. No, we won't be terrified. Welcome to the revolution.
Welcome to the MAHA Media Hub, and welcome to the MAHA Revolution. I'm Tony Lyons, president of MAHA Action. When Secretary Kennedy decided to get into politics, he didn't do it on a whim. He spent years watching and enduring censorship happen, watching people get shut down, watching one of our most basic rights, the right to speak freely, get chipped away at. And he was clear back then, and he's still clear now. He wasn't going to be silenced, and he wasn't going to let other people get silenced. That's been at the heart of MAHA from day one. Free speech, free inquiry, the right of any American to ask a question about their own health without somebody in a white coat or a press office telling them to sit down and be quiet. And here's the thing. That's exactly why this movement has grown the way it has. Not because we all march in lockstep. We don't. We argue. We push back on each other. Politico and the New York Times and so many other places, they call it fracture. They say we're breaking apart, and they love that. But disagreement is not our weakness, it's our strength. And that's the whole point. People in this movement argue with each other. They argue with the government. They argue with whatever official story happens to be, prominent during a certain week. And that's how you actually get somewhere. When you're willing to listen to the argument you don't want to hear. You find the holes in your own thinking. You stop defending a narrative and start chasing the truth. That's science, real science. Not the press release kind, but the kind that you earn from study and from people with all different points of views thinking it through. And the old way of doing things, when you bury the awkward questions and silence the person asking them, is falling apart in front of us. And that's a good thing. Just yesterday, a former NIAID official, David Morans, was indicted. The charges have to do with dodging FOIA requests on COVID-19 research grants and trying to bury other theories about where the virus came from. That's what you get when a system cares more about staying in control than telling people the truth. And that's the reason MAHA exists in the first place. What we're after is gold standard science. And what that actually means is pretty straightforward. Let scientists do their job. Let them follow the evidence wherever it goes, even when it makes people feel uncomfortable. Put the data ahead of the agenda. And when it turns out we were wrong about it, say so. Just come out and say it. It also means actually listening to people. For decades now, parents in this country have been asking why their kids are getting sicker than they used to be, why chronic disease keeps climbing and has gotten to astronomical levels. And for decades, mostly, they got brushed off. But Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was one of the few people who sat down and listened to the families, to the doctors, to the researchers, to regular Americans who weren't looking to be censored. They were looking for answers. So MAHA today isn't just talking back to power. It's giving a microphone to the people who got shoved off the stage. No question is off the table now. Every road leads back to honest inquiry. And we're not done. We're not even close to done. The same principles we're talking about, free speech, transparency, accountability, they're being tested right now in court and in Congress at the same time. Let's talk about the Supreme Court case first. It's called Monsanto versus Durnell. The question it's asking is simple enough. Do Americans still get to be warned when a product can hurt them? And when it does hurt them, can they still hold the company that made them responsible? A jury already gave their answer. They heard the evidence about a man who got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after years of using Roundup. They concluded that he hadn't been properly warned, and they made the manufacturer pay for it. Now that verdict is under attack. The argument going up to the Supreme Court is basically this. If a federal agency signed off on the label, then it doesn't matter what a state thinks, or what a jury saw, or what a court decides. The label is the label, and you're out of luck. And that can't be right. It can't be true that if they left out something important, you get left holding the bag. And the same fight is happening over in Congress, just in a different sort of costume. The House is debating the Farm Bill this week, and tucked inside it are provisions that would basically hand pesticide companies a get out of jail free card. So here's what they need to hear, and they need to hear it loud. Take those provisions out. Those cannot stand, because what they do is shield pesticide manufacturers from being sued when they fail to warn people. They'd strip the states of the power to protect their own residents. They'd gut protections that have been on the books for a long time, for many years, and they'd wipe out any way for an American who gets harmed to do anything about it. MAHA backs the Luna Amendment that would strip those provisions out and put accountability back where it belongs. No industry, no corporation gets to put itself above the people it's supposed to be serving and providing products to. That's how this is supposed to work, and that's how we demand that it works. The Luna Amendment will be getting a vote on the floor, and it is imperative that we stay loud. So when the vote comes to Congress, they side with us, not with big corporations, not with industries, not with lobbyists. It's really not complicated. Courtroom or Congress, the rule is the same. If your product hurts somebody, people have a right to know. If a warning is missing, somebody has to answer for it. And if the regulators drop the ball, and they do it all the time, historically, Americans still have to have somewhere to turn. That's how you build trust. That's how you actually protect people's health. And that's where the work of turning around this chronic disease epidemic in America starts to happen. The one that's touching basically every American family, and the one that we are here to end. So this is the fight of our generation. Today, you're going to hear from people on the front lines of these battles. Leaders of all kinds, experts, folks who've been advocating on this for years, people standing up for the truth, for transparency, and for the rights of the American people. Our guests will include the founder and CEO of Human Co., Jason Karp, health and wellness advocate, Nurse Kate Johnson, newly appointed Chief MAHA Officer of Steak and Shake, Michael Bose, author of One Scan Saved My Life, Shira Boehler, just pubbed today or yesterday, co-founder of Celiac Journey, Jax Bari, the knowledge doc, Dr. Eric Berg, and comedian and author and podcast host, Russell Brand. First up, we'll be joined by Vani Hari. Known as the Food Babe, Vani has been a corporate accountability advocate for more than 10 years, exposing toxins in our food. Nothing could be more important. She's the best-selling author and the founder of Vani, an all-natural organic line of foods and supplements. She is a MAHA warrior through and through, and one of the leading voices trying to stop pesticide immunity in the Farm Bill and the Supreme Court. Thank you, Vani, for being one of the main driving forces behind Monday's People vs. Poison rally. And welcome to our show once again.
Thank you so much, Tony. That was a strong statement on behalf of MAHA Action against the pesticide liability shield issue. I really appreciate that. It's very clear that this is something that we are all unified on and fighting for. On Monday, it was one of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen in my life. In front of the Supreme Court, every walk of life, citizens from all across the country, health advocates, farmers, scientists, Democrats, Republicans, everyone came together to say one thing, that they will not stand for any kind of pesticide liability shield. They will not stand for corporate immunity when your product causes cancer. And it was a line in the sand. It was people coming together to say, we're done pretending this is normal, that our administration or anybody could ever side on behalf of Bayer. And everybody was speaking out together. It was one of those moments that reminded me of when Secretary Kennedy put decades of work in the Democratic Party and being a Democrat aside to join President Trump and say, enough's enough. Our children are more important. Our next generation is more important. We should come together and try to solve the chronic disease epidemic. We need to save our kids from the mass poisoning of America. And when he joined that campaign, it reminds me of this moment on Monday, because it kind of shows that this was the spirit of what he wanted to create. He wanted Democrats and Republicans coming to the table to solve these issues instead of being delegated by special interests and their own constituencies. It was a moment where we all put everything aside to come together. And it really was, I think, the spirit of what Secretary Kennedy really wanted to bring to Washington with the MAHA movement. And it was just so incredible to be part of. We had an incredible day, 3 hours of speeches. We marched to Congress afterwards to make our voices heard on the Farm Bill. And I think they were heard. We sat in the Rules Committee. We saw the language that was being discussed by our elected officials. We saw the corruption. We were able to call it out immediately. And I think that's what's so beautiful. When everyday citizens come together in Washington and hold our leaders accountable and witness what they're discussing and witness these conversations that are happening along, it's happening on C-SPAN every single day, but not necessarily in front of the American eyes like it's happened this week. And we were able to do something amazing and get the amendment in. But with Luna, the Luna amendment is going to be voted on in 2 weeks, likely. So we have about 2 more weeks to contact Congress and tell them that we will not stand for any pesticide liability language in the Farm Bill, that we want to strip 10.205 through 207 from the Farm Bill. And if that amendment doesn't pass, it's a no on the Farm Bill. It's very clear that we will not stand to give this any pesticide corporation legal liability from lawsuits. Something else happened, I think, that is just so beautiful to see, is that the media was in full force covering what we were doing. And so the conversation about glyphosate and the harms of this weed killer and the countless court cases across America that have shown that this weed killer causes cancer and have given farmers cancer is being discussed on every major news channel. The discussion about this topic is entering a new wave. And so we've opening kind of this situation where largely these topics weren't discussed in this way. And it's very exciting. But I think what's also important to point out is that a lot of the media wants to continue to divide us and say that we're not together. I mean, the main question I've been asked over and over again is, what do you think about Secretary Kennedy now that you've spoken out against this? I still feel the same. We need good people in Washington pushing things forward. We need good people in Washington telling the truth more than ever. And if there's anybody pushing it against special interests, it's Secretary Kennedy, and he will continue to do it. We will continue to support his efforts. We will continue to work together and bring more people to the table to solve these issues. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thanks so much, Vani. We're having some tech problems, but I'm just going to try to forge ahead. So, thank you, Vani, for the incredible work you've been doing. I mean, I know you've been working just around the clock to try to get this word out. And it's so important, whether we have victories at the federal level or not. What we have is the American public recognizing what's happening and learning more and more that they need to push from below to defend themselves and their families. And you've been, such a big part of that, had such an important role in that. And I'm just very grateful. And I know that all the people watching are grateful as well. So, thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you, Tony. I'm just waiting for this moment for everybody in Washington to out-MAHA each other. And it's almost like I've been waiting on bated breath. And I think we're almost at that moment where we're going to have an enormous conversation about what's happening. And I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. It's been fascinating because a lot of Democrats now are trying to sort of take credit for it. And like you said, people are fighting over, who should get credit for it. But the point is, and the thing that matters to MAHA is that we actually make progress and that we actually look into real science and have a federal government and a court and companies and people at all levels who are focused on protecting the American public.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Next up, we have Jason Karp, and he is the founder and CEO of Human Co, and is driven by the passionate belief that improving health is the most effective strategy to increase global prosperity. Through his own health journey, Jason experienced the healing power of clean eating and clean living. Following a 21-year career in finance, Jason co-founded Hue Products and Hue Kitchen. Hue is now one of the fastest growing snacking companies in the US, with a strict focus on transparent, simple ingredients to help everyone get back to human. Thank you so much for everything you've been creating to give people the option to have healthier foods. And welcome.
Hey, Tony. Yeah, I was there on Monday. I was, I guess, one of the final speakers. And I took a very different approach to the speeches, which I felt like was important. I was really happy to see that the turnout was pretty bipartisan. And it was probably the most bipartisan MAHA effort that I've been part of, which of course is everything that we talk about regularly, that health should not be a red or blue issue. It shouldn't be a right or left issue. It shouldn't be an issue that that we really argue over. I mean, this is something that is deeply human, and I took a different approach to my speech, which seemed to resonate very strongly and differently than some of my past speeches, which was more like a sermon. And I wanted to really appeal to all the people that were listening, the business leaders, the members of Congress, the justices, that we have a sacred duty to each other. We have a sacred duty to the land, to the food and water. And this is something that I consider to be a covenant that comes directly from God. This is the oldest law. This is older than any court and older than any government. And I really wanted to make that clear to everyone that was listening, particularly those that have some say in what's happening, either in the court hearing or the Farm Bill, that we as human beings, we have a deeper responsibility than anything related to money, and that we shouldn't sell our children out for better crop yields. And I think the gaslighting that's been happening around cheap food prices, around crop yields and food stability is ridiculous. It obviously is a good gaslighting strategy that's been used around this topic, but it's something that I think we have to really wake everyone up about. And by appealing to people's sense of humanity, about what I consider to be the deepest moral instruction that humanity has ever received, which is around taking care of our land, our water, and each other. That was the direction that I took yesterday, on Monday. And it was one that seemed to really hit hard, because we all know something's deeply wrong. And the other thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to make it much more of an invitation. I wanted to make it an invitation that there's still time for redemption, that the courts can correct themselves, Congress can choose differently, and what we have is broken, but it can be rebuilt. And I want all of the people that were listening who have some sense or some ability to change things to know that they still have a window to do that, and that the title of the day, people versus poison, or people over poison, I felt really needed to be captured, so that we can all wake up and effectively choose our children over money. And it felt like a very powerful day, and it felt like we're making progress. I'm so thankful to Vani, for organizing it. I'm so thankful for how many people showed up, and I feel like we're actually making a difference because this is something that's so deeply personal, visceral, obvious, that we have to stop engaging in behaviors that are clearly driven by this faulty concept of progress. We define progress in terms of economic variables, standards of living, access to things. But when we're all the sickest we've ever been and our cancer rates are exploding, particularly the cancers of ingestion like colorectal cancer, I think we have to redefine what we call progress. And so I was really happy with yesterday, with Monday.
Thanks so much, Jason. I was going to be at that rally and had a personal crisis and couldn't make it. But what you learn from that is the fact that I didn't show up. 10 reporters sort of like wanted to know the story and thought that MAHA wasn't behind it. So let me just say, for the record, that I really wanted to be there, and that I think that the message that you had and that Vani had and that so many other people had was so important there. And the idea that this is not a Democrat or Republican issue, like you said, is so important. And there are a couple of key things there. One of them is that Democrats have to recognize that we have 3 years left, and there have to be things that we can come together on. We can't wait 3 years, and they can't stonewall every single thing that Secretary Kennedy does, or that Donald Trump does, or that anybody else in the administration does. That we have to find some common ground. We have to get some good things done, because people will literally die if we don't. So I think it is really that kind of an existential moment of people having to stop playing political games and come together and fight for things that matter. So thanks so much for coming on this show, for going to the big rally, for creating great food, and for all the different things you've been doing.
Thanks, Tony.
Next up, we have Michael Bose, and he is a former senior advisor for the Department of Health and Human Services. He was recently appointed to be the first ever Chief MAHA Officer at Steak and Shake. And to my knowledge, that's the first company that's had a Chief MAHA Officer. And that, I think, is a great thing. And we hope that becomes something like 1% for the planet used to be, where hundreds and hundreds of corporations learn from MAHA, come to our website, read our Substack, follow us in all different ways on social media, and join with us to create healthier products for people. So he's responsible for making sure that the entire restaurant chain that he works for is aligned with MAHA principles. And Steak and Shake has been leading the way in redefining fast food by eliminating seed oils, using clean and healthy products like grass-fed beef, and removing artificial ingredients from their food. So I'm grateful for the changes they've been willing to make, and so happy to join with you, Michael, in this new journey.
Thanks for having me. I'm a little upset that you have me going after Vani and Jason, but I'm going to have to, I'll do with it. Vani, I need to get the True Vani protein to get the energy she has. But no, I think it's an exciting time. Thanks for having me. I think outside the position itself, and I do want to talk about that briefly, but I also want to highlight my experience working for Secretary Kennedy and HHS. It was truly fulfilling. Hearing you all talk about this bipartisan support around the rally the other day, it's exciting. And Tony, to your point, I really hope that there's an encouragement from members of the other side of the aisle to take that support beyond this issue alone, right? There's just time and time again where you see these members of Congress where the secretary is just getting absolutely grilled. And to have one of them just say, look, we may have our differences, but I have to give you credit where credit is due on a lot of these things that they've been campaigning on for years. So just cleaning up food, the new dietary guidelines, artificial dyes, et cetera. So, I think it's truly been historic the past year. And that's all been thanks to Secretary Kennedy and the work that he's been doing. My year there completely changed my life. Prior to that, worked in an industry making good money, but there's just zero fulfillment. And walking through the halls of HHS every single day was an absolute blessing. And I'm truly grateful for that. And it's really led to where I'm at now. And so I think it's truly historic for a brand like Steak and Shake to say, look, MAHA is good for business. And I do truly believe that, there's two avenues of really making this change. One is the regulatory side, and two, it's just showing that the consumers are demanding this, right? And we're kind of taking this bold step to say, we're going to drive the demand and we're hoping to impact the supply. I know Jason's dealt with this with True Food, but working on the supplier side, it's extremely difficult. And there's just people that are dragging their feet. And this message that we're truly trying to hit home that I think really ties in the whole making America great again, making America healthy again, is 50 years ago, our food environment wasn't the way it is today. And that included fast food, right? Like fast food meant to be convenient. It was never meant to be unhealthy. And, the more rollouts that we're doing, by doing those, it kind of gets the consumer to question like, okay, we're going to roll out a bun. It's just going to be bread. Okay, well, what's in the other things? I didn't even know I was eating something other than bread. Our new cheese, it's going to be just cheese. Our beef, it's going to be just beef. Tallow, it's just going to be just tallow, nothing else. So it's educating this consumer that, maybe isn't going to the Sweetgreens every day, right? And I love the owners of Sweetgreen. They're doing phenomenal stuff. But I think to make the change, it's the consumer that isn't putting health top of mind, that they just want a burger and they want fries. And they're just getting educated through the messaging that we're delivering of, even if you want a burger and fries should be just a burger and fries and not the added chemicals that's really infiltrated our system in the last 40 years. So again, I think it's exciting. I really hope and I truly believe that Steak and Shake is going to see massive growth as a result of that. And I think the economic model, then, a lot of the competitors are going to have to look at that as they experience declines. And Pizza Hut is closing stores left and right, where it's going to be good business to adopt MAHA. And I think that's going to be such an exciting time for the environment, for the movement, and for the industry. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm hoping to continue being an advocate for the secretary on the outside, because, again, they really need it. Everyone in that building, they go in there every single day. I mean, truly, truly historic. So I'm excited to keep this moving on the private sector and look forward to continue to be a supporter of Secretary Kennedy in this movement.
Thank you so much, Michael. And, it's just great to see Steak and Shake doing all of the things that they're doing now. And, from my perspective, people have written stories in all kinds of newspapers saying that there are people out there trying to make money off MAHA. And what I think is that MAHA I want companies to go out there and try to make money doing something good, rather than what's happened in the past, that so many companies have tried to make money at the expense of the American public. So what you're doing is exactly what should be done, which is to have companies, have a sort of a moral center at the same time that they have a profit motive, and that there's nothing dissonant about that. So that's a great thing. And I'm grateful to your company and to you for showing, for being such a shining example of what we want every fast food chain to do, and every company of every kind to think about, that it's not okay to poison the American public anymore, that ends now. And that, as Bobby Kennedy said, and has said many times, sick people have one dream, and that's to get healthy. And healthy people have 1,000 dreams, and they can live full and free lives. And that's what we need to get back to. And that's what this administration has committed itself to. And everybody should embrace that. So thanks for what you've done and what you're doing. And we look forward to continuing working together.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Next up, we have Russell Brand. And, part of what's happening is that we need people to start to love their families and their children, and all of our families and all of our children, more than they love doing things that wind up poisoning the American public. And, one of the ways people get there in all kinds of different ways, but one of the ways they can get there is through a closer connection with God. And that is something that Russell Brand has written a book about. It's called How to Become a Christian in 7 Days. Spectacular book. And I'm hoping that, Russell, that you'll talk a bit about that and about the connection between the book, the writing of the book, and your mission and people leading healthier and happier lives.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for publishing this book as well. Russell Brand, How to Become a Christian in 7 Days. And I'd like to read a passage for you now. Wait a second. It's in here somewhere. Give us a minute. No, is that it? No. No. Hold on. I've got to start preparing these things in advance. I mean, this keeps happening to me. What's the common denominator? What's the common denominator? This book, the reason that I wrote this book is because I love Jesus. And how did it happen? Because I've known about Jesus for ages, like everyone, from school nativity plays onwards, from psychedelic encounters and experiences. Not suggesting that Christ appeared to me a la Saul of Tarsus in psychedelic visions. No, that's not a claim that I'm making. What I'm saying is once you've taken psychedelics, you recognize that sensory reality is but a fragment of the total. Now, see, when I've been promoting this book, I went on Megyn Kelly and, I said things that in retrospect I could have said differently. Piers Morgan, I did not enjoy that experience, really. And part of the reason I didn't enjoy that experience is this, and I think this might be important in this context. Power presents itself as normal, as neutral, almost natural, actually, like it's something that can't be questioned. This is just the way things are, terms like common sense. When you go into a building like the Associated Press buildings in downtown New York, you'll be shocked maybe a little by the kind of blank, pitiless edifices of new power. The turnstiles cold and chrome. The elevators that have no buttons on the lobby floor where you must be summoned from above. You're allocated an elevator as you come through with your temporary lanyard. When you reach the upper floors, you won't see a human being or a window anywhere. All of us have been in buildings like this. All of us know what it is to be surrounded by bureaucracy and the falsehood of bureaucracy's claim of neutrality, managerialism. Bureaucracy is just here to get things done. As you walk them corridors up there, it's hard not to reflect back on the golden age of media, at least my own golden age of media, 1999, walking in at MTV, everybody beautiful, including me, beautiful young men, beautiful young women, every desk in the open plan office adorned and covered in gonks and wonks and free gifts and magnificent opportunities. Oh, it was a different world then. It was so colorful, so beautiful. That ain't the world of media these days. The Associated Press, look into its funding. Look into who funds the Associated Press. Look into the kind of stories they tell you about the world and about yourself. If you use the bathroom there, you might walk past a series of images that you've been coached into seeing as prestigious black and white images of war and violence, including that famous one. And he's either a Cambodian guy or a Vietnamese guy getting shot in the head like that, trapped in time forever in a public execution. And me, coached by the culture as I am, I see that almost like as if it's Man Ray or something I'm seeing in a gallery. And I almost have to be reminded, that's an image of execution, of brutality and murder, like the other images along that short corridor to the bathroom. What poses as neutral, as natural through bureaucracy is a kind of super state waiting to be occupied by something. And then increasingly, I consider it to be occupied by evil. An evil that I think can only be thwarted at the level of the individual, actually, initially. That's what's hopeful. Don't you think when you're ever having a conversation about what are we going to do about toxins in our food? What are we going to do about pesticides ruining the soil and the river? What are we going to do about the undue influence of lobbying interests over American politics, British politics, global politics? I'm just one person. Isn't it encouraging to know that just one person is all that you need to be, all that you can be? that maybe in alliance with other people, and indeed in confederacy with new and emerging nations, nations founded on something of principle, not just the pursuit of resources, not just the pursuit of power, but a mantle of truth, to stand upon a mantle of truth. It becomes a kind of possibility in Christ. It's not a possibility for me on my own. Me on my own, I'll just be like an incumbent, a denizen of this filthy bureaucratic world, playing out my own role, hedonist, decadent, whatever role they cast me in. And what I sort of realized in the midst of that mad interview is that in its kind of pose of neutrality, there's a sort of leaking and insidious upward seep of cynicism, as if the soil itself is tainted, as if the land upon which we stand is tainted, as if our roots reach down into something toxic, and as if just to be cynical and to be skeptical and to inquire and to doubt, to be rational, reasonable, all the words they use when people say, I'm a realist, people say, what do they really mean? Do we even really know what's real? Certainly not if you've ever had an encounter with the sublime, the divine, or considered the limitless cosmological possibilities, or the unending and infinite ongoing spirals in the submolecular world. I mean to say, when people say, oh, I'm just a realist, what they're really saying is, let's leave power as it is. Let's just shuffle the colours of the incumbents of offices that may be oval or may be square, but regardless of geometry, they're going nowhere. You're going nowhere. You will never encroach, impeach, or impact institutional power. You will stand on the outside and you will eat what we give you, whether that's loaded with starch or toxicity. You will consume the information that we provide you, whether it's true or whether it's false. So as a person that's been interested in politics and power and culture for a long, long time, that's been churned up and spat out by the machines of this culture, and then it ain't through with me yet, and it don't seem like I'm through with it yet. This is a book about coming to Christ and recognizing that so much of the language, sin, church, all of it, it seems like it's not relevant to me, but it is. It actually is. He's real. He's real and he's here now. He's real and he's here now. And at the beginning of that journey is a personal encounter with something holy and sublime, the source of holiness and sublimeness, in fact. But when you educate yourself, as I continue to, you will discover that all those feelings you've had, if you're me at least, about the world being corrupt and not making sense, and why does evil prevail, and why does good fall apart, and why are some people humbled and others elevated, it's all in there. It's all in the Bible. In fact, I've got the verse for you now. Hold on a minute. Let me. I'm going to find that verse for you. It's in here somewhere. Wait, just a minute. Let me find it. Oh, come back to me another day. I'll find it eventually. Have a look at this book if you get the time. Praise the Lord. Cheers, Tony.
Thank you so much. And those interviews on podcasts and the coverage that you've gotten in so many newspapers, that is really toxic. And that's part of this whole sort of toxic world. And that, I think, is a lot of what your book is about. It's getting away from a toxic existence. And that I think is part of how it ties into MAHA, that this is a war against toxins in our body and in our minds and in our souls. And you can't do one at a time. You have to do them all. And we need people at all levels to do all of those things and to start to open their hearts up and their minds up and their bodies up to things that are fundamentally healthy. And I think we can do that. And that, I think, is what MAHA really stands for, is that people are not willing to accept a government or big corporations or teachers or doctors or anybody who's going to feed them things that are toxins, who are going to lie to them, who are going to poison them in all kinds of ways. And that's what I think you represent. And that's a lot of what I think people will get from reading this book.
Thanks, man. Thanks for publishing it. Thanks for sticking up for me. I appreciate it, Tony.
Anytime.
Peace.
Next up, we have another real fighter, and that is Dr. Eric Berg. And he's, known as the knowledge doctor, and he's, globally recognized. He's got 45 million followers. But more than that, he's genuinely dedicated to the mission of helping people lead healthier lives. And, that is such a noble thing. And his dedication to MAHA and to children and to the health of everybody in this country, to the health of people all around the world. When I talk to Eric, I just feel that goodness and that sincerity, that he's not trying to get more money, more power, more fame. He's genuinely trying to help people. And I just love that. So Eric, thank you for doing it. Thanks for coming on this show each week, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate that. So I did something recently that I want to share with everyone. I took the 6 places almost every single person gets their health information from: NIH.gov, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, WebMD, Healthline, and Wikipedia. And I put them side by side. And I started looking at them. And what I found was like bizarre. These are all different websites, different writers, different layouts, but it's the exact same information, just different packaging. But it's all the same conclusions, same treatment recommendations. So then I started asking the question, like, well, where do they get their information from? And it's really comes down to one thing, and that's called consensus. Now, what is consensus? It's basically what everyone agrees on. It's majority. It's the group agreement. And just so you know, that's not what science is. What's really even more bizarre is if you disagree with consensus, you're now misinformation. So it's really kind of crazy. So anyway, it's basically consensus is let's vote on it, especially when you get into mental illness. All the really thick diagnostic book on mental illness, you think that they came up with them through diagnostic testing. No, it was let's get in a room and vote on what makes this up. And people need to know that. And I'm just putting this on your radar. And unfortunately, when you tell people, you need to do your own research, it's all coming from the same thing. So it's really hard for people to get second opinions. It's hard to get, just different options, especially in the area of alternative things, unfortunately. So this is where we end up, is like people just, especially with informed consent, it's like there's no options. It's like they're supposed to give you alternatives, but like, well, you have this drug versus that drug. So unfortunately, that's where we're at. But there's a hidden layer that I think people need to know that we'll explain everything. And that's really what funds consensus and what funds the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, professional societies, the dietitian organizations. Well, if you guess big pharma and big food companies, you are correct. That's where a lot of the information is really coming from. Unfortunately, it ends up in health. So it trickles down. But there's something even more interesting or more, it's actually interesting because it's omitted, it's invisible. When I started looking at these sources of health, I'm like, what's missing in all of them? Well, the biggest thing that's missing is causation. What causes these problems? Most of the data is about diseases, manipulation downstream of managing symptoms. But when you get into root causes, they do mention it, but they encode it in a scientific form. So they'll say the root cause is idiopathic. What does that mean? Unknown cause. Or they'll use words like primary or essential. Both of those mean unknown cause. Like if we take hypertension, 90% of the cause of hypertension is essential, which means unknown cause. They don't know, right? So, and then they'll mix up a bunch of associations and risk factors and confuse the hell out of people. But what's really missing is the cause, because everything has a cause. Unfortunately, it's not put out there. The good news is RFK is instructing his team to do more research on actual prevention, causation, and lifestyle factors. Because the great majority of research dollars is spent in, especially for chronic illness, is spent on comparing a drug to a sugar pill. That's it. It's not looking at root causes. And so if a patient can't know what a root cause is, then they're stuck with just one option, and that is drugs, unfortunately. So anyway, I just want to put this on your radar because it needs to change. People need to be aware of it. There's not thousands of root causes. There's not even hundreds. It's probably less than 10. Nutritional deficiencies, trauma, injury, infection, ultra-processed foods, chemical and environmental toxicity. Medications now have become a root cause. It's the third leading cause of death. EMF, sedentary lifestyle, sun deficiency. These are all root causes. So thank goodness we have MAHA to be able to align with this and get behind it and really give people finally what they've been looking for is the cause of their problems. Thank you very much, Tony.
Thanks so much, Eric. And that really is crazy when you think of there being just 10 root causes. And, the battle for our health and the battle against, fake corporate science and captured federal agencies, it is just endless. And the strategies that they have, that the hit pieces, all of the different arguments that they make that Bobby Kennedy is dangerous, or that you're dangerous, or that Gary Brecka is dangerous, or that any of us are, these are games at such a high level because there's billions and billions of dollars at stake. There is money in poisoning the American public. It is deeply sick, deeply troubling, but it's a fact. And, so this process of trying to obstruct everything we're doing, trying to obstruct Bobby, trying to obstruct all the people on his team and MAHA, it just keeps on going. And we have breaking news now that, Congress had said that they were going to vote later, that they were sort of troubled by some aspects of the Farm Bill. But now they're saying that they're going to just kind of rush a vote and try to do it tonight at 9 p.m. So that's just another strategy. And so one of the things that I'm hoping all the people watching this will do is call Representative Austin Scott at 202-225-6531. It's on the screen now. And to also call Representative Mary Miller at 202-225-5271. And to tell them that we, the American people, we just won't accept the MAHA moms, children, every parent in America, all of us, we won't accept a government that will allow these kinds of things to get through. And we need to remove the pesticide liability shield. I've even spoken to lobbyists in Washington who say we shouldn't have liability shields. These are lobbyists for pesticide companies. So, there cannot be liability shields for any product. That's the only way we get progress and innovation. That's the only way that we end the chronic disease epidemic in this country. So we need to remove the liability shield part of the Farm Bill. We need to vote on the Luna Amendment and get it through because this won't stand. People are going to see it in the midterms. They're going to see it in their careers, that this is something that's going to haunt them for their whole career, for the rest of their life, that they cannot vote for things like this. They can't accept money from the companies that push these kinds of products. And they need to get on board because nothing could be more important. So thanks a lot. Sorry to rant and rave, but thanks for coming on each week and for all that you've been doing. I watch your videos just constantly. I've got to watch them less, but they are just terrific and they're so helpful. And I'm really just grateful.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it.
Next up, we have Jax Bari. He is 12 years old, and he's already a notable activist, just the kind of young person we need in this country. And we need millions of Jax Baris coming from every corner of the country to fight all of the chronic disease. So he's focused on celiac, and he's co-founder of Celiac Journey. And he's just a true MAHA kid, advocating for common sense ways to solve, all of these problems. And he would like to require labeling of gluten on all packaged foods in the US. And he's here today to update us, all of us, on the incredible progress that he's been making and the roadblocks that still stand in his way. But, if I was going to bet on somebody, this is just a powerful, dedicated, sincere, smart young kid. And I'm proud to have him on once again. Thanks, Jax, for coming on.
Thanks, Mr. Lyons. Hi, I'm Jax Bari. I'm 13 years old. I have celiac disease, and I'm the MAHA kid. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share my goal, eating without fear. I'm here today asking for your help. In January, the FDA turned the tide on the gluten guessing game. In response to the MAHA strategy report and my citizen petition, the FDA issued a request for information to require gluten labeling on packaged foods in the U.S. Gluten is found in wheat, barley, rye, and most oats. Cross-contamination. Since 2006, only wheat has been required to be labeled in the U.S., but not barley, rye, and oats. That's created a massive food safety gap. When the RFI comment period closed last week, more than 6,000 comments had been submitted to the FDA. Many people shared that barley, rye, and oats are often hidden in seasonings, natural flavors, and spices and are not disclosed. Sometimes gluten is hidden in plain sight when these are not declared by common name. For example, it can appear as malt flavor instead of barley malt flavor. Gluten grains can also be buried in long ingredient lists with small print and not called out as allergens. Most of the comments submitted to the FDA were very supportive of radical transparency to declare barley, rye, and oats as allergens. However, Consumer Brands Association is fighting my common sense solution to protect 3.3 million Americans with celiac disease, including 729,000 kids like me. CBA represents more than 2,000 iconic brands, including Pepsi, Kellogg's, General Mills, Kraft Heinz, and Nestle. CBA is fighting the MAHA strategy report's bold initiative to require gluten labeling. CBA's 14-page letter made incorrect and misleading statements about requiring gluten labeling, including that 1, it would exceed FDA authority. 2, it's not supported by science. 3, it would create consumer confusion and unnecessary industry burden. And 4, the current voluntary gluten-free labeling system is sufficient. Their reasons are nonsense. 87 other countries require the labeling of gluten, including Canada, the UK, and the European Union. Consumer Brands claim that its member companies remain committed to enhancing consumer transparency, and they do that all over the world, just not in the US. That's why we need FDA action. CBA claimed that it would be inaccurate, misleading, and confusing to consumers to treat oats as gluten-containing grains. However, oats are required to be labeled in Canada, the United Kingdom, and across Europe because oats are inevitably cross-contaminated with gluten. Many of CBA's brands like Kellogg's label barley, rye, and oats in other countries like the UK. CBA's letter represents the calcification of old arguments as FDA dogma and statutory interpretation. The authors of CBA's comments are former senior staffers within the USDA and FDA. That is what the MAHA movement is trying to change. Here's corporate capture of people who now play for the other side, putting profits over consumer protection. I'm asking the MAHA movement to call out CBA, echoing Secretary Kennedy's warning that ultra-processed foods are poisoning Americans through the GRAS loophole. Undeclared gluten is poisoning celiacs through the gluten labeling loophole. Since gluten grains are not declared as major food allergens in the U.S., celiacs have been forced to rely on products that are voluntarily labeled gluten-free. Often, these are ultra-processed foods that have been created to be sold in a premium marketplace of high-priced gluten-free products. We are grateful to Senator McCormick for calling on Secretary Kennedy to use his existing statutory authority to require the labeling of barley, rye, and oats as major food allergens. In addition, glyphosate is used on barley, rye, and oats, and all Americans have the right to know whether gluten is an ingredient in their food. Celiac is every bite, every day. constant worrying, constant questioning, constant uncertainty. Just like the FDA instituted its accelerated approval program to allow for earlier approval of drugs that treat serious conditions, we are calling on the FDA to accelerate issuing rulemaking to require the labeling of barley, rye, and oats as major food allergens. Let's do this to celebrate Celiac Awareness Month this May and to make America healthy again. Thanks again, Mr. Lyons.
Thanks so much, Jax. You know, people say that young people are losing their motivation and their sense of purpose. And, you know, you really prove that that isn't true. I mean, you're so amazing. And I'm so proud of you. You're a warrior. You're a role model. And, you know, we're fighting for you, for your generation, for the next generations. And it's so beautiful to see you fighting for yourself and fighting for the future of children for generations to come. So I'm proud to have you on. We're going to have you on many times. And thanks again for all the work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lyons.
Next up, we have Kate Johnson, and she's a registered nurse and a health and wellness advocate. She's the proud mom of 4 kids under 5 years old. Wow, that's impressive. And a true MAHA mom. Her Instagram content is inspiring women across the country and across the world to raise their kids naturally and to feed their families real food. You know, that is the low-hanging fruit. That's something everybody can do, and it's so important. So thanks, Kate, for coming on to talk about it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
You too.
So yeah, my whole motivation in all of this is to see a group like this come together. What an amazing panel it's been today. Everybody from 13 years on up to Russell Brand. I am so inspired to see how many people are really latching on to the MAHA movement and really taking this message and not just taking it to heart, but taking action. It is so amazing to have an umbrella under which we can all march forward together to make real change in this country. I think as a mom, my message is really focused on John 10:10. If Russell Brand needs a help with a scripture reference in the future, I think that's the true scripture that encapsulates what the MAHA movement is all about. It says that Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I, Jesus, have come to give you life and give it to you more abundantly. And one of the things that we have seen over the last few decades is our lives being stripped of their abundance. So many people are suffering unnecessarily with chronic illnesses and chronic diseases that are stripping their life from them. They are suffering at young ages. I got into health and wellness advocacy because I worked critical care bedside in Washington, D.C., and I was taking care of patients who were having massive cardiovascular events in their mid-20s, in their early 30s. And I started to say, like, something is not right here, and I'm working on the wrong side of this. I need to get away from doing these last-minute life-saving interventions and start helping people take action before they're in my hospital bed. I was the kind of nurse that if you were seeing me, you did not want to be seeing me. It was a dire situation for you. And it was happening to people younger and younger, just in my tenure of 10 years at the bedside. So I started to find places where I could really try to make an impact in the health and wellness movement. And what I have found is that the greatest impact that we can have is with moms, with their children in their homes. Moms are the ones who make most of the purchasing decisions when it comes to foods. So it's so encouraging to see people like Jason creating a line where they can purchase a chocolate bar and they can give it to their kids and not have to worry about all of the additives in it. They can take their kids to Steak and Shake. We're going to unthrone Chick-fil-A as the champion of the healthy, the faux healthy fast food option, and Steak and Shake is going to take that place. And I'm here for it. I will throw my hat in the ring for being a person to help bring that mission to completion, where moms can take their kids to a place after they have a ball game and not have to worry about the food that they're feeding them. This has become such a burden on mothers in particular in this country, that every single decision that you make, whether it's the vaccine decisions or what kind of candy to give your kids, you're having to worry about if you're poisoning them. And that is an extreme word. I know that, but it's a true word. We are watching small children suffer with late stage chronic illnesses. Children are now receiving liver transplants because they are having end stage fatty liver disease. So something had to be done. RFK Jr. is the perfect vessel to carry out this message, to carry out this mission. He is fearless. And we needed somebody who was going to be willing to stand up to the forces that are out there that would try to strip us of our individual liberty, of our choice, of what we want to put into our families, what we want to bring into our. And that includes the food choices that we make, but that also carries with it, as Russell Brand was saying, a spiritual connotation. And I think that that is the thing that has created a lot of unrest among moms in this country, is that they feel something is not just physically off, but spiritually off. And we're starting to have hope for the first time that we can actually make an impact and from the ground up, make changes that are going to last with our families for generations to come.
Kate, thanks so much for all of that. I mean, you're clearly on the right side now. Clearly. And, you know, I'd say that for anybody who's watching this, that it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It doesn't matter the choices that you've done made in the past. Like you were saying, Kate, whether you've given your kids junk food or food with seed oils or food colorings or all kinds of things. None of that matters. Forgive yourself. We forgive you. What matters is the choices that you make now, the things that you do now. That's the only thing you have control over. And that's what we should all focus on. So we're not looking to sort of place blame. We're looking to have companies, fast food companies, pesticide companies, anybody out there who's willing to change, to actually take the steps that are necessary to stop poisoning the American public. And it's great to see Steak and Shake doing that. Great to see you coming on here. And like you said, all the people who've come on today, just a beautiful thing to see so many dedicated people today and each week. So thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Next up, we have another person who's really trying to save people's lives. So, she's worked in finance but she's become a health advocate with degrees in molecular and cell biology. She's the author of a book, this incredible book. It's called One Scan Saved My Life. And this is just a fantastic story. And it's a story that I think can really, like I said, save people's lives. And, nothing is more important. That's what MAHA is all about. It's putting people in a position where they don't have to suffer from chronic disease, where they can have happy and healthy lives. And the idea that a routine scan, that a simple scan can actually save somebody's life. That's just an incredible thing and an incredible mission. And I hope everyone who's watching this show will go out and buy a copy of this book, give it, read it, give it to their wife, their mother, their sister, their friend, their grandmother, anybody, because this is something that can be beaten. And all of the chronic diseases, we can do better. And, there are, as Dr. Berg said, 10, chronic disease precursors, 10 root causes. And so there's so many things we can do. Shira Boehler working very, very hard, traveling around the country, getting onto, all kinds of TV shows, just doing a spectacular job. And, so happy and so proud to have her on and to have published her book. Welcome, Shira Boehler.
Hi, thank you so much, Tony. I'm very excited to be here. And I also wanted to give Nurse Kate a shout out. I'm the mother of 4 also. They were all once under 5. Now they're 9 to 14. They get older. And having 3 teenagers is another game to play. But I wanted to come on today and talk about my book, One Scan Saved My Life. And literally, one scan saved my life. I, like a lot of you, have always gone for the fridge, not the pantry. I run 6 miles multiple days a week. I've always tried to do the right things, teach my kids about eating healthy and taking care of themselves. So when I was diagnosed with lung cancer 6 months ago, my life and world turned upside down. I've never smoked a cigarette, puffed a cigarette, or anything. My dad is a lung doctor. We did not grow up with cigarettes or any smoke in our house either. And when I was diagnosed, I obviously didn't believe them. I thought they were wrong. What I've realized in this whole thing is that lung cancer is actually killing more young, healthy women, women who run, women who exercise, women who eat right, than breast cancer and ovarian cancer and colon cancer combined. And we're not doing anything about it. And this group here with MAHA, as well as a lot of us who aren't on today, believe in healthcare, not sick care. And we need to change that. We need to focus on preventative scans. And a simple low-dose chest CT, just like a mammogram or a colonoscopy, can do that. It can save your life just like it saved mine. And I'm working with Secretary Kennedy and Dr. Oz, who signed the quote on the back of my book, and other people in the administration, as well as insurance companies and doctors and friends, to better educate, to change the narrative about lung cancer, to encourage people to do preventative scans. Because if we can catch lung cancer early, like I was lucky enough to do, we can catch it in stage 1. It's a 90% chance of survival. And the problem is right now with some of these cancers, especially lung cancer, once you have a symptom, it's stage 4. And once it's in stage 4, it is closer to a death sentence. The chance of survival is less than 10%. So we need to fix that. We need to get a scan. We need to be proactive. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to read my book so that we can learn all the different ways you can do that. And we need to share it because it is a women's health crisis. And they have found in studies that many never smoking women are getting lung cancer at a faster rate than even smoking men. So it is time to shift. Like I said, it's healthcare, not sick care. We have to take control of our bodies and advocate for ourselves. And my book came out yesterday. It was very exciting. I was in New York on the Today Show and in Times Square talking about it. And I'm excited to share it with all of you. And I hope you can grab a copy. I hope you read it. It's a quick, fast beach read all about lung cancer. And share it with your mom and your sister. And as Mother's Day is quickly approaching, grab the book, send it to your mom, and then take her to go get a low-dose chest CT because it can save your life just like it saved mine. Thank you so much, Tony, for publishing it and encouraging me, even as a molecular and cell biologist turned finance girl, to write a book. And I'm hoping to hit the bestseller list this week so that I can encourage more people out there in this country and around the world to read it, to get a scan, to take care of themselves, to be focused on preventative healthcare, and to continue the push and the drive that we're all working on together.
Thanks so much, Shira. And it really is fascinating that if people get a scan early, they've got a 90% chance to survive. So that's amazing because, you and so many other people can be saved, and you really were saved. And so telling that story and putting that story on the Today Show and in so many other places in front of millions and millions of people is definitely going to save lives. And I want to just quickly read Dr. Oz's comment on the back of the book. So he says, even as a trained lung surgeon, I find cases like Shira Boehler's truly shocking. Her riveting story should be grasped by all. So go out and buy a copy. Please buy a copy. Do me a favor and buy a copy. Give it to somebody and maybe, hopefully, save people's lives. Thanks so much, Shira. Hope you have a great day. Congratulations on the book and hope to see you soon. Okay, so thank you all for joining us for yet another great episode of the MAHA Media Hub and for tuning in every week. And as always, you're going to get an email that's going to tell you about all of our speakers, discuss their insights and their dedication and their contribution, and also give you clips that you can send out to other people and that you can post. So we at MAHA have many, many powerful tools at our fingertips. We have the MAHA report on Substack with well over 200,000 subscribers now, and that's growing constantly. We've got the incredible MAHA Institute roundtables, and there's another one coming up this coming week. We've got the historic MAHA Summit in September. Really going to be a great event. It was terrific last year. The highlight of it was Bobby Kennedy and Vice President J.D. Vance talking at length, just historic conversation. Then we've got the legislative tracker. We've got MAHA films. We've got MAHA books like Shira Boehler's book and like Russell Brand's book. We've got parties all around the country, big events. So, we really hope that you will take part in this and that you'll follow the thousands and thousands of influencers with their hundreds of millions of followers who are promoting the existential crisis that we are working to solve and that are trying to enlist people all around the country. So support them, post things yourself. So we're going to harness all of this power, every bit of it, to fight and build a MAHA movement that's going to last for generations and that's going to be, in the end, when it can be nonpartisan. When Democrats are willing to stop trying to obstruct Secretary Kennedy and the president and join in this fight to end chronic disease. So, that's what the administration has said they're dedicated to. And we believe it. We're taking part in it. We're fighting with them. We're partners in that battle. So once again, following this call, you're going to get an email with a full recording of this episode and then clips from it. And we hope that you'll share that as widely as possible. And then once again, call Representative Scott and Miller. And I'm just going to go through it once again. Representative Austin Scott, 202-225-6531, and Representative Mary Miller, 202-225-5271. We cannot and we will not allow our government or big companies or anybody, not the Supreme Court, not anybody, to push liability shields onto us so that Americans can't defend themselves, can't be protected, can't protect their families. Nothing, as I've said many times, could be more important than this. So we really want you to focus on this, to make this a priority. It's coming up tonight at 9 p.m., so do it right now. So thanks so much once again for joining us this week, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. MAHA is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
MAHA is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
There's a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at MAHA Action.